Shang Yu is an aristocratic general who wanted to be called feudal lord. Wu Bang was one of his generals. Wu Bang turned against Shang Yu, and in 202 BC, they fought, with Wu Bang winning. Declaring himself the first leader of the Han Dynasty, he established a centralized government. Bringing peace and stability, he lowered taxes and softened punishments. He died in 195 BC. His son became Emperor in name. The empress would name her infants emperor so that she could remain in control. When she died in 180 BC, those who remained loyal to Wu Bang's family came back to power and executed her relatives. Wu Bang's grandson, Wu Di, ruled from 141 to 87 BC. He is also known as the martial emperor for expanding China through war. His enemies, the Xiongnu, raided China's farmland and took hostages, grain, livestock, and other valuables. Previous emperors tried to buy off the Xiongnu by sending them silk, rice, alcohol, and money. However, they would accept the gifts and continue their raids. Wu Di sent more than 100,000 soldiers to fight them and made allies with their enemy. The nomads were forced to retreat to central China. Wu Di colonized modern-day Manchuria, Korea, and Vietnam. The emperor had divine authority. Earthquakes, floods, and famines were the consequences of his failure, whereas peace and prosperity came if he did his job well. To raise money to run a complex bureaucracy, the government taxed peasants and merchants. Peasants also owed a month's worth of military service or labor building roads, canals, and irrigation ditches. They also expanded the Great Wall. Wu Di's government employed more than 130,000 people. The bureaucracy included 18 different ranks of civil service jobs. Wu Di favored Confucian scholars as court advisors. They practiced reverence, generosity, truthfulness, diligence, and kindness. He set up a school where applicants from all over China could study the works of Confucius. They would then take exams in history, law, literature, and Confucianism. Anyone could take the exams, but only the sons of wealthy landowners had a chance at a government career because they could afford the education. Books were originally written on silk. However, with the invention of paper in AD 105, books became more readily available because paper was cheaper and education spread. Also, because paper was convenient, Chinese bureaucracy expanded. Collar harnesses, plows, iron tools, wheelbarrows, and watermills were created and improved. Agriculture was soon considered the most important occupation. The government established monopolies on the mining of salts, forging of iron, minting of coins, and brewing of alcohol. The government also ran huge silk mills which competed with private silk weavers. Commerce expanded along the Silk Road. Techniques of silk making became a closely guarded secret. To unify the empire, the Chinese government promoted assimilation and sent farmers to colonize new areas. They also intermarried with local peoples. Government officials set up schools teaching Confucian philosophy and also appointed local scholars to government posts. Sima Qian, also known as the Grand Historian for his work in compiling a history of China from the ancient dynasties to Wu Di, wrote accurately by visiting historical sites, interviewing eyewitnesses, and researching official records and examining artifacts. Another book, History of the Former Han Dynasty, was written by Ban Biao. It was completed by his son Ban Gu and his daughter Ban Zhao. Ban Zhao also wrote a guide called Lessons for Women, which called upon women to be humble and obedient, but also industrious. Women contributed to a family's economic life through duties in the home and work in the fields. Upper-class women pursued an education and culture, while others ran small shops. Farmers would go into debt and landowners would take their land. However, they would not have to pay taxes, so small farmers were taxed harder. The gap between the rich and the poor increased. With political instability and peasant revolts, chaos ruled the palace. In AD 9, Wang Mang took the imperial title for himself and overthrew the Han, ending the former Han. Attempting to bring peace, he minted new money, set up public granaries, took away large land holdings from the rich, and gave it back to the poor, but angering the rich. In AD 11, a flood left thousands dead and homeless. The peasants and wealthy rebelled, killing him in AD 23. In AD 25, the later Han began quite prosperous. Soldiers and merchants regained control of the Silk Road, but by 220, the later Han disintegrated.